Hello, hello! Welcome to your math lesson. Today's math lesson is super short, so what I wanted to do is take this opportunity to go over some of the problems that are in the sprint that are going to give you some problems. So I thought we would start there. The first thing I want you to do is get your whiteboards out and go ahead and set up these problems here. And what I also want you to do is make sure that you do it nice and neat, but leave yourself enough space to work under each problem. So go ahead and pause the video and then set up your problem, and we'll be right back. Okay, now the first problem we're going to look at is 25 minus 10. So what we could do is we could actually go ahead and punch 25 and count backwards 10, but that's probably going to take you a while. So let me show you a little trick that you can do for yourself. What we're going to do is set up a tens and ones frame, okay? And I'm going to put the number 25 in the tens and ones frame. Now, think about what the question's asking us. It's asking us 25 minus 10. How many groups of 10 is 10? That's right, just one. So if I'm taking one group of 10 away, I'm going to look at my tens and ones frame, and I'm going to take one group away. So I had 2. 2 take away 1, I'm left with 1. And my 5 doesn't change. So now my number is 1, 5, which is the number 15. Pretty good, huh? Now, what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at this as a whole. So now, if I did it and I looked strictly at my tens, think of it as two separate things. So here's my 10 digit here. Here's my 10 digit here. 2 minus 1 is 1. Isn't that correct? And now I'm going to look at my 5 and my 0 because those are my ones. 5 minus 0 is 5. So you'll notice that the ones did not change. The only thing that changed was the 10 because I'm taking a 10 away. That's how you'd figure out the missing sum or the missing total. Now, let's go to this one here. Now, you probably already know the answer, but let's see how we can figure this out. So, I know I started with 25, okay? And I'm going to make it into a tens and ones frame. I know I end with 15. So go ahead and make yourself another tens and ones frame. So I started with 25, 2 tens and 5 ones, and I ended with 1 10 and 5 ones. So let's see what the change is. What did we take out of 25 to get to 15? Well, let's take a look. What changed? Did my 5 change at all? No. So I know that's going to be a 0. If I look at my tens, though, did my tens change? Yes, they did. The 2 went from a 2 to a 1. That means I took out 1 10. So if I put that 1 here, I took out 10. That's how I come up with my answer. Now, watch this. Isn't that the same problem over here? All we did was took out a different piece. So here we took out the sum. Here we took out the number that we were subtracting. One of our parts we took out. Okay? Now, let's go down here. This time we have what's called 3 add-ins. We have 3 numbers we're adding together. One of them is a 10, so that's pretty easy. But this is what I want you to do. This is actually a very easy problem. I want you to put a caret underneath these 2 numbers. 3 plus 2. I hope you know that just like that. If not, we can go 3, 4, 5. So I know my answer is 5. So I'm going to put my 5 here, but guess what? I can't forget about the 10. So I'm going to put the plus 10 down here. So I know 5 plus 10 is 15. And the way I know that so fast is because I can do the switcheroo and I can make it 10 plus 5, where 10 5 is 15. Okay? I'm going to put my 15 down here. And I think it's easier if you see it as adding 2 digits or 2 numbers instead of adding 3 numbers. So that's why we connect those 2 together. Lastly, and the most tricky way, is this here. When you're missing the very first number here, which is going to be your total, because think about it, when we subtract, we take the total, subtract out a part, and we end up with the other part. So you're trying to figure out what the total is, okay? Now, in this case, you're going to have to do a little adding to figure it out, okay? So we need to know what this number is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my total, my 15, and I'm going to add it to the number that I took out of it, which is 10, to come up with my answer. So I'm going to ask you it this way. What is 10 more than 15? Well, let's think. We've got 5, 15. The next number would be 25. So that's where that counting by tens comes into play. So in this case, I'm going to add 10. Now, if I did it like this and made it a tens and ones frame, I'm again adding a group of 10. So I'm going to cross that out. 1 plus 1 is 2. Now my number is 25. So I took that 15, and this time I was adding 10 to it. I was adding a stick of 10 to get my answer of 25. I hope this helps, because as we go on, the sprints are going to get a little bit harder, and you're going to find sometimes it's a missing total, sometimes it's a missing part. You just never know what it's missing. You really have to look at it and know what it's asking you. I hope this helps. Ready for part 2? Okay. So this is what we're going to do. I wanted to reinforce how to put numbers in order. Now yesterday we did a lot with putting numbers in order from the least to the greatest. So I thought today I would pick some numbers and we'd go from the greatest, meaning the biggest, to the least, which is the smallest. Now, I'm going to try to be tricky with you guys because there's a lot of the same numbers, and this is where you really have to look at your numbers. Take your time and slow down. Sometimes I know we think, oh my gosh, it's so easy, I can get this done really quick, and then we make mistakes, and I do the same thing. So what we need to do is all take a deep breath, let it out, and let's get started. Okay, so I have the numbers 23, 13, 32, 22, 12. Now, what do I need to start with if I'm going from the greatest to the least? What do I look at in a number to see if it's the one that's the biggest? That's right. If you said it's the tens place, that's exactly right. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put a little line under the tens place for each one of them. So I've got a 2, a 1, a 3, a 2, and then another 1. Okay? So which number has the biggest number in the tens spot? That's right, 32. Because 3 is bigger than 2 and 1 and 2 and 1. So obviously 32 is going to be our biggest number. Remember, we're going from greatest to least. So I'm going to put 32 right here. And then you don't forget to cross it off, because that means that I've used it, and this way I don't have to reuse it again. Now, what number am I going to next? Remember, greatest to least. Right, so if 2 is in a 10 spot, then that would be the good choice. But here's the tricky part. I've got 23 and I've got 22. So once you go to your 10 spot and they're the same number, you have to look at that 1 spot. So unlike yesterday, what you need to do now is which number is bigger? Is it 3 or is it 2? If you said 3, you're right. So 23 is going to be my next number, and I'm going to cross it out. And then obviously 22 comes next, and we're going to cross that out. Now we're left with 2 numbers. We're left with 13 and 12. Well, if I'm counting backwards, my numbers start bigger and get smaller. So out of those 2 numbers, without even looking at the tens and ones, what number is bigger? 13 or 12? If you said 13, you're absolutely right. So 13 is going to come next. Cross that out, and then you're left with 12 and cross that out. So again, what we're doing is we're going from the biggest number to the smallest number. All right, let's get going with our lesson today. Like I said, it's a pretty short lesson, and I think it makes a lot of sense if you take a look at what it is that you're doing, okay? So just stay with me. So yesterday we talked about you're going to read a problem as if it's a book, okay? So you start from the left and you move over to the right, okay? So what we're going to do is read this problem. 25 is greater than 20. And the reason I say is greater than is because the first number I said was bigger than this number, and I'm reading it like a book from left to right. Now, if I flip the numbers around like I did here, I have to read it differently. I have to say 20 is less than 25 because, again, I'm reading it like a book, okay? So let's go on to look at something new today. And it's basically saying the same thing, just using a symbol. So here's your greater than symbol. This means that if I have a number like I had 25, actually let me put this back up here again. So if I have 25 and 20, I'm going to open up the mouth to the 25. See how that looks like a mouth with teeth? I'm going to open that up to the bigger number. And I'm going to read it, 25 is greater than 20. But if I was reading this one here, I would have to flip it around because this mouth, again, has to open to the biggest number. So I would read this as 20 is less than 25. So again, it has to be opened up to the biggest number. What happens if the numbers are the same? Well, that's when you have your equal sign. That means everything on one side is exactly the same as the other side. And you read that as is equal to. Okay? Now, let's take a look at some problems. What we're going to do is we're going to take a look at them and decide, are we using is greater than, is less than, or is equal to? Now, sometimes what you need to do is actually figure out what the number is. So in this case, we have 110, and in this case, we have 110 and 6 ones. The very first thing I would do is this. I would make myself a very small tens and ones frame on both sides. Now, over here we have 110. Do I have any ones? It doesn't say. So if I have no ones, my number is 10. Over here it says I have 110 and I have 6 ones. So my number is 16. So which number is bigger? What is the greater number? That's right, 16 is the greater number. So think about how we read it. Am I going to say 10 is greater than 16? Nope, because it's not. 10 is less than 16? Absolutely. So what I want to do is I want to make a sideways V and open my mouth up to the bigger number, which is what I just did. Now, let's take a look at these two numbers. We have 30 and 20. Pretty simple, right? If I wanted to look at the tens digit, I have a 3 and I have a 2. Which one's bigger? Obviously the 3. So again, our mouth is going to open up to the biggest number. Do you have to draw the teeth? No, you don't. I'm just doing that to prove a point, but you do not have to draw the teeth. When you do your work, just go ahead and do it with the sideways V's. Now, again, here we have 4 tens. So I'm going to make a tens and ones frame again. I have 4 tens. It doesn't say anything about ones, so I'm going to put 0 for my ones. Over here I have my tens and ones frame again. I have 3 tens and 8 ones. So I'm looking at the number 40 and the number 38. So our numbers are getting up there. You might not know which one is bigger. So go back to what you know. You know to look at your tens. I have 4 tens here, 3 tens here. This number is bigger. Okay? Now I'm going to give you one more. What if I give you 2 tens and 6 ones? And over here, I give you the number 26. Well, I already have a number here. I don't have to do anything with that. Over here, I need to, again, do my tens and ones frame. So I have 2 tens and 6 ones. So I have the number 26 here. Well, I have this number 26 there too. Those are exactly the same. So that's where you're going to put equal sign. So it's 26 is equal to on page 26. 32 and 33. Now, we're going to do exactly like I did here. If you take a look, what it's asking you to do is to decide which number is bigger. And up here, all you need to do is either circle, you need to circle the mouth that opens up to the biggest number. Okay? Easy enough. Down here, what it's doing is it's giving you two numbers. So again, the bigger number has to go on the side where the mouth is open. Not too hard. Okay? Look at page 33. The exact same thing. Now, one hint I'm going to give you is this. If you look closely and you see that there's nothing in a 1 spot or nothing in a 10 spot, I want you to put a 0 in there. That means that there's a 0. So for example, if I have 110 and then there's nothing there, it's like having 110 and 0 ones, which is the number 10. If you have any problems, please let me know. And make sure you have your parents send a picture of your work to your teacher.